All right, man, peace. So Tyron Woodley, the current welterweight champion of the UFC, will be advising / training Floyd Mayweather on his prospective UFC career. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
What is going on with Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s MMA career? What's the latest? Welcome to TMZ Sports. Van here with Michael J. Babcock. More importantly, UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley is here.
We out here.
Tyron, what's going on? As a matter of fact, before we ask a question about Floyd Mayweather's MMA career, are you guys beginning the process of training Floyd as we speak?
Yeah.
Before Tyron speaks, let me say this. Good job by Floyd Mayweather in reaching out to Mr. Tyron Woodley. Floyd understands the dynamic here. Tyron is arguably one of the top fighters in the UFC, but does not get really the acclaim that he feels he deserves, most likely because he allegedly, quote-unquote, has a boring style. Floyd knows what that means. That means that he's a fighter who is defensively responsible. So Floyd may see a kindred spirit in Tyron Woodley and being a UFC fighter that is pretty much viewed as a very defensive-oriented fighter who is going to be extremely responsible in the ring in regards to how he treats his body and his overall fight approach. And Floyd views him as someone that he can learn from because he watches Tyron fight. And remember, Floyd is a combat sports connoisseur, meaning what? Even though he's not a UFC fighter, he could look at a fighter that participates in mixed martial arts and say to himself, this is what that guy does well. This is what he doesn't do well. Or I like how he chose to maneuver there. And of course, he can put himself in that person's place and say to himself, would I be fighting like that if I was in the UFC? So I think that there was a lot that went into Floyd choosing Tyron Woodley as his guru. And also the fact that, of course, Tyron is black. So I believe that Floyd trusts him a little bit more.
Yeah, I talked to Floyd yesterday, actually. He's in Miami right now. We coordinating dates on training. We're beginning the process of setting up the time, and I think more of it is going to be game plan and strategy over the phone and talking about the game plan of training, and then start the training. Because obviously, if you think about the wrestling, you think about the jiu-jitsu, and you think about the kicking aspect of the game, he does not have to go out there and start learning how to kick like Bruce Lee. He does not have to go out there and become a black belt overnight.
People have to understand something about Floyd Mayweather. Floyd is a transcendent athlete before anything else. He's a transcendent athlete. Like, he's on LeBron James level in regards to being gifted athletically. Some of the things that he can do in regards to fast twitch muscle, hand-eye coordination, foot coordination are things that have never been seen in boxing. And certain people may scoff at that. But when you compare Floyd Mayweather's skill set to just about every fighter that has ever stepped in the ring, he compares favorably to just about every fighter that has ever stepped into the boxing ring in regards to overall skill set, offense, and defense. The only thing that he's not a 10 out of 10 on is one-punch knockout power. That's it. So it's not going to be a huge gulf, in my view, in regards to his ability to transition over to mixed martial arts. And another thing, let me say this, and I touched on this in the previous video, the obsessive compulsive nature of Floyd's personality will allow him to dive headfirst into the mixed martial arts style of training. So I would expect his lower body to put on some girth. As we know, he is going to have to thicken his legs in order to be able to endure potential leg attacks, things of that nature. The main thing is going to be how quickly he catches on to the ability to escape takedowns, to get up off the ground. I'm sure that he's not going to try to embrace any type of wrestling involvement. He's going to try to escape or evade that phase of the combat world if he can. Now, of course, if he's forced into it, he's going to have to learn at the very least the rudiments and try to master the rudiments. But please understand something. Floyd Mayweather is gifted. So when you're gifted, you're able to catch on to things with far more alacrity than someone who's not gifted. Am I expecting him to get in the ring and be able to wrestle like a black belt, or a a nationally ranked wrestler or have the skills of a black belt jiu-jitsu master? No. But he is going to show a certain level of diversity to his fight game that I don't think people are going to expect. And I think that he's going to shock some people with his abilities in the UFC. But we'll see. If you ask me, I wish and I hope that he wouldn't do it. I would like him to just sit his ass home. But he is a conqueror. He has the personality of a conqueror. So people with that type A personality, they're always looking for new challenges.
He just has to be able to stop it and to get within boxing range. And I think anybody in the UFC, he's going to be able to handle his own with.
Anybody in the UFC, especially if he can get them to try to box with him, he's going to make them look so ridiculous. He makes professional boxers look ridiculous. If he gets in the ring with UFC guys and they're not able to take him down, or they're not able to penetrate the exchange range, which basically is going to be, basically Floyd's playground. If they're unable to get him into a takedown mode, it's going to be very embarrassing for anyone who gets into the ring with him. But I would surmise that it can become a potentially very embarrassing situation for Floyd if he's on the ground and he's expected to be able to counter any type of advanced wrestling moves.
Is there a time frame, Tyron, for when you guys start this strategy planning over the phone?
Look at that snot flying out of Connor's mouth.
The phone, and for when you actually get, in person and start showing him some stuff?
Yeah, I think we're going to start most of it next week. So I think we're going to start some of the strategy talks next week, and we might get some sessions in as well. So that's next week or two.
Wow.
Tyron, I have to be honest about something here. Here on TMZ Sports, shout out to Evan Rosenblum right now. First of all, I'm sure you know Tyron. Evan is away.
Baby Evan in the house.
Baby Evan, a brand new baby. I believe when I'm here in the chair and keeping the same energy, and I want to make sure that you know something, Tyron. I happen to believe that Floyd Mayweather, under your tutelage, can actually become a proficient enough MMA fighter to where he can handle himself in the UFC, and I've said as much.
I believe so as well. And I won't even say that it depends on how hard Floyd works, because we all know that he's an extremely hard worker, and he does not like to look bad because he has a huge ego. So I would see if he decides to take a year and plunge himself into that world, within 7 months, that he has a relative level of proficiency in the other aspects of combat. We already know, as he stated, on a scale of 1 out of 10, he's 100 with the hand game. There's nothing that he needs to learn in regards to the boxing aspect, which is probably 60 to 65% of the mixed martial arts endeavor, is boxing. As Tyron already stated, and as he's going to go into a little further on in this interview, you have fighters in the UFC that are not a 10 out of 10 in wrestling or jiu-jitsu, and they just try to front like they are.
Babcock, on the other hand, Michael Babcock right there has said verbatim, not even Tyron Woodley can stop Floyd from getting his ass.
What I said.
Damn, Floyd got on a python jacket right there.
What I said was,
here comes the crawfishing.
What I said, just because you talk to Tyron, I talk to Tyron, I can't wrestle. I don't think that.
Stuttering.
I'm scared. Man, Tyron is 5 feet to my left. And I was talking a lot when he wasn't here. It just, can you really teach him, Tyron? Like, he said he was a 7 out of 10 wrestling. Can you actually teach Floyd enough?
Let me just put it in just, idiot-proof 1, 2, 3s of MMA, all right? Every fight starts where?
On your feet.
On your feet.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Every round starts where?
On your feet.
On your feet. The majority of most mixed martial art bouts take place on your feet.
Yeah.
So with that said, when you look at the footwork that it takes to be a proficient boxer, it's very similar to the same footwork it's going to take to defend shots. How many guys in the MMA or UFC or whatever organization have completely god-awful, horrible wrestling or terrible jiu-jitsu?
Or terrible kicks. Jean-Claude Van Damme went to train with Cody Garbrandt and that camp over there on the West Coast, and he embarrassed those guys in regards to establishing the gap, the disparity between higher level kicking, like he was able to execute, as opposed to what is utilized by a lot of quote-unquote top-notch fighters in the UFC. He kicked Garbrandt right in the face and embarrassed him, had Garbrandt ready to want to fight him.
jiu-jitsu.
A lot.
And please keep in mind that Jean-Claude at this point is probably well over 50 years old.
Maybe 50% of the entire roster. There's not everybody who fights in the UFC is not all-American wrestler in the black belt in jiu-jitsu. So with that said, being properly matched up against those guys, even Connor's not some guy that's, he went for a takedown on Nate Diaz because he was, getting tired. He, the punches weren't knocking out Nate.
Exactly. Connor is a boxer and a taekwondo guy who knows a little bit of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. And I'm sure somebody's going to jump in the comments. What are you talking about? Connor's a 15th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, whatever. I know what I'm watching. Conor wants to stand up with you. He doesn't want to take you to the ground. Now, if he gets Floyd in the ring, he's definitely going to try to get Floyd to the ground. But then again, who knows? Conor's so proud and arrogant, he might try to outbox Floyd in a damn octagon.
So therefore, he took a desperation shot, and what happened? He ended up getting choked out. So if you put him in a position where he can utilize the great footwork he already has, some defensive techniques, and the ability to just stay out of, takedown distance.
Look at that jab, man. Look like a damn cobra.
And stay in striking distance, I think he can.
Cobra strike jab.
I think he can have success.
So,
no telegraphing at all.
With what you know, with all the conversations you've had with Floyd, is he...
Freddie Roach stated that Floyd Mayweather had the best jab that he'd ever seen after Floyd's performance against Manny Pacquiao. Please keep in mind that attacking a southpaw with a jab as your lead weapon is considered non-conventional. And Floyd was able to utilize the jab against a southpaw, top-level southpaw like Manny Pacquiao to nullify him.
Is he going to fight in the UFC?
You know what? I don't think he's training for nothing. I mean, MMA is not an easy sport, especially...
See, now look at Floyd's physique. This is why he's able to get ripped so quick. Even though he looks skinny here or slim here, you can see that his frame is naturally fit. That's why it's laughable when you hear some of his detractors allege that he uses or that he has used performance-enhancing drugs, blah, blah, blah. It's really just an attempt to take credit away from his career. There are a lot of things that you can criticize Floyd for, but his conditioning is not one of them. It's clearly genetic, as you can tell by his dad, who's also in great natural shape. It's just something that travels along the family bloodline. Point being is this, it's not going to be difficult for Floyd to get in top-notch shape to get into the UFC. The only thing that he's going to have to do is strengthen his legs. The leg training for boxing is going to be different from what the prerequisite for leg training will be to fight in the UFC. Most boxers, they do a lot of running, jump rope, maybe body weight squats, things of that nature. For mixed martial arts, he's going to have to do a lot of squatting, a lot of heavy squatting, probably a lot of weightlifting exercises that he's not accustomed to.
Especially when you had a whole career boxing already.
Yeah.
He does not have to do this. It's not like he's broke. It's not like he needs money.
Yeah, that's
I think he just want to be challenged. And I think when you've been at the highest level for so long, what kept him at the top? Probably set new goals. Hey, this fight I want to just work on the rope it up. This fight I want to work on my check hook. This fight I want to work on counter and only. This fight I want to come out. I think he had to make those different goals in each fight just to keep it, interesting for himself. Mixed martial arts is a whole different wheelhouse. Now kicks are going to be coming. Yeah. Elbows. A lot of people say, hey, his hands were hurt a lot in fights. He had to have them taped up extra.
One reason why maybe he stopped going in for the kill later on.
Think about this.
Absolutely. Floyd Mayweather had hand problems all the way from 2000. I'm trying to remember what the fight was where he got hurt or he hurt his hand to the point where he actually had to take a knee and they counted it as a knockdown because his glove touched the canvas. I believe that it was the fight right after he fought Diego Corrales. I believe that the fighter's name was Hernandez. But yeah, Floyd has had hand problems for a very long time. And when you look at his career, the man had 50 victories and something like 26 or 27 knockouts. They act like he was Pernell Whitaker or something, like he wasn't stopping anyone. If you listen to many of his detractors. Had Floyd not had the hand problems that he had, he probably would have had at least 11 or 12 more stoppages. I mean, just looking back at his career, he could have stopped Zab Judah if Zab didn't hit him low in that fight. When you look at the bout against Robert Guerrero, when he was beating him around the ring, I believe in round 8, but he hurt his hand in the next round. Canelo, he could have stopped had he put the pedal to the metal. there are many fights that he's had where he could have gotten the stoppage if he was a little bit more aggressive and not concerned with his hand problems. But it is what it is. Every great hero, even in mythology, has to have an Achilles heel. And his hands just happen to be his.
This. If you can throw an overhand right or right punch, you mean to tell me you can't throw an elbow? How many boxers throw elbows anyway? So if he gets in close quarters, it wouldn't be silly to say he can throw an elbow in replace of a hand.
Agreed. And beyond that, there have been allegations that Floyd throws a lot of elbows anyway. Those were the claims made by Mr. Victor Ortiz that eventually led to him getting knocked out. But anyway, we'll see what happens with Floyd in the Octagon. Hopefully everything goes moderately well for the brother in regards to that endeavor. Hopefully for him, he does not get too badly hurt. We'll see. Peace.